Good morning, folks. It's Vicky Midwood here, the Alcohol and Disordered Eating Eliminator. That'd be Alcohol Addiction and Disordered Eating Eliminator. That doesn't mean that I make you eliminate everything. It means that I help you to eliminate the reasons why you feel you need to turn to food or alcohol or both to help you get through the day. And I'm talking about getting through the day because I'm talking about depression. So over the New Year sort of weekend break holiday, I put a post in my Lifestyle is Health group asking people about the health issues that they wanted some help with over 2021, particularly now. Because obviously there's a lot that's been going on recently. And depression was something that came up. Now, I did do a live talking about the other issues that came up. So talking about joint pain and bloating and gut issues. And if you've got autoimmune issues, what sort of foods you should be avoiding. And I also was talking about fatigue. Now, depression and fatigue are often things that go together. What I want to say about depression, some of you may want to disagree with me and may feel that I'm saying stuff that I shouldn't be. But here's the thing. Depression is a funny one because when people tell me they are depressed, it's a word that's being used in today's world, particularly by young teenagers, particularly on social media. And it's just been bandied about a little bit like the word stress is as well. And people don't really understand what it means. True depression, clinical depression, is a completely different thing to somebody feeling low, fed up, tired, having no energy. Right, and feeling that everything's a struggle. They're totally different things. And when we start bandying the word around depression, oftentimes when people tell me they're depressed, what they mean is that they're feeling low, and that mood is a continuous low mood. It's not lifting, right? But they're not actually clinically depressed. Does that make it any the less uncomfortable and horrible to deal with? No, it doesn't. But I think we need to be really, really careful when we label ourselves as having an illness. And unfortunately, many people that I work with have been labelled by their GP. And what happens with labels, whether you're labelled an addict or whether you're labelled a depressive or whether you're labelled, whatever it is, a diabetic or any illness, if you are labelled by your illness, you have a tendency as a human being, not just you as a person, but as a tendency as a human being to live up to that label. Right? We have been told what is wrong with us. Okay, let me go check it out. What does that actually mean? Maybe you've checked it out on Google. Maybe you have gone to your GP with a list of symptoms and he said, yeah, those symptoms tick all of the boxes. Therefore, because you've ticked those boxes, you are a depressive. Now, when we live up to labels, it's very difficult to shake those labels off because we start to become the illness. Right, instead of being who we are. And very often I speak to people, and when we actually break down what is going on and how they are feeling, it's not actually depression that's going on. Oftentimes it's a physiological issue. It could be very well an issue with their gut. If your gut is not working properly, it affects every single function, and crucially, it affects your neurotransmitters. Now, some of you have heard of dopamine and serotonin, but there's also things like GABA and acetylcholine and various other neurotransmitters that are all responsible for how you are feeling as well as how you are functioning. And a lot of those are made in your gut. So this is going back to the fatigue issue, the autoimmune issues. If you're not eating well, if your lifestyle isn't good, if you're not going to bed at the same time, getting up at the same time, if you're not getting outside and getting some vitamin D, if you're actually vitamin deficient or mineral deficient, your body cannot function properly. And if it can't function properly, it can't make the hormones and it can't make the neurotransmitters that you need to feel good. So diet and lifestyle are the most important things when it comes to depression. Now, if we are then going down the road of taking antidepressants, we can actually oftentimes make the situation worse. Not that I'm saying you should not take medication if that is what your doctor deems is going to be the best thing for you, but it should be a short-term thing while we look at what else is going on. Okay, unless we are talking clinical depression, and I'm not going to touch on that because that is a completely different area. But what I want to say to you is this: depression is often a choice. And this is the bit that you're probably not going to like. Because if you label yourself as being depressed, you are therefore going to do things and think thoughts that will keep you in that depressed state, because your brain likes to reinforce your beliefs. And so what most people don't realize is that they can choose to feel a different way if they want to. You can rewire your brain and you can rewire your thinking. But if you are so used to living up to your label of depressed, it's very, very difficult to do it on your own. And you need someone to help you to go through that. One of the first things that I do with my clients is go right through their whole lifestyle history, their whole life and health history. Right? So I look at what are they doing now? How are they living now? How are they eating? What is their sleep doing? What is their stress like? What is their job like? What is their home environment like? Who are they hanging about with? Because that's absolutely crucial. But then I also look at their complete health history. So how were they, right from how they were born, because that's going to affect your gut microbiome. It's also going to affect whether you switch on or switch off certain genes. It may be then that we look at genetic testing. If there is a history of things in the family, we will look at that. Could it well be that there is a genetic issue going on? Possibly. Is that the cause of it? And does that mean that by default you have to be depressed? Absolutely not. No. If those genes are switched on, then we can still do a lot. We can't switch them off, but we can learn how to manage things and do things that work for us. So is depression this cloud that you cannot get out of? No, it isn't. But do you need a lot of nurturing, a lot of care with somebody who understands what depression is and that it's not just all about your thinking? Then yes, I would suggest that you do. Thyroid issues absolutely cause depression. And for those of you who know my story, that was my story. I have had regular bouts of feeling very depressed, to the extent that I've tried to kill myself more than once, because I just couldn't face the world. I did not want to carry on. I couldn't see a way out. And I just oftentimes, before I got my diagnosis of my hypothyroidism, my Hashimoto's, I used to literally have to force myself to get out of bed, to teach classes, to work with clients, when really I just literally wanted to throw that duvet over my head and never, ever face the world again. And that's even when I had my daughter. I felt like that before when I was drinking, and I was absolutely in the depths of my eating disorder on numerous occasions. I have in the past rung up work and said and made up lies because I just couldn't face anybody or anything, and I didn't want to get out of my bed. Right, I understand that. It's a horrific place to be. And I was offered antidepressants. Thankfully for me, I chose not to, because my mum had a label of manic depression. Now, in hindsight, I question very much whether that was correct, because there was a lot of issues going on with her thyroid too, which were never looked at and never checked out. And you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And even if I had known what I know now then, the medical doctors and the psychiatrists would still not have listened to me, because there wasn't the research available and out there about this stuff that there is now. But there is an awful lot of people who have got a manic depression diagnosis who actually have some serious thyroid issues and gut health issues. And so that's something that you need to be mindful of. Also, what you need to think about is, have you had any brain injuries, any brain trauma? If you have been knocked out or you've been hit on the head, then you will have neurological issues going on. And This is important stuff that is often never even mentioned at all when it comes to depression. So this is why I go right through your health history and any major events that may have happened to you. So if you've been knocked out and had concussion or been unconscious, those things are really important when it comes to something like depression. They're also really important when it comes to gut health as well. So is there a lot you can do for depression? Yes, there is, but you have to, and this is the tricky bit with depression, you have to feel motivated enough to reach out for help. And then you have to be committed to doing the stuff that you need to do. And that's difficult when you feel depressed. So you really, I would suggest, if you're going to get help, you need to get help from somebody who totally understands what depression feels like and how hard it is. It is not an easy thing to overcome, but it can actually be quite straightforward and quite simple when you know what is happening for you. So I hope that has been helpful, folks. There is a lot of depression that we talk about is brought upon by stress, and it's brought upon by the thoughts that we think in our own head and the stuff that we attach to and latch onto. And a lot of people who suffer from depression are people who spend a lot of time in the past. Or they worry about the future and they don't allow themselves to actually be here today in the present. Now, that's not always the case at all. But usually depression and stress are things that occur together. And we need to look at what is causing you stress and what is causing you to think in the way that you do. And what are the incidents in your life that have happened that have led you to being where you're at? Is it a diagnosis that you have to live with for the rest of your life? Well, if it's a genetic disposition that's going on, you're going to have to manage it, that's for sure. But will you always be depressed? No, absolutely not. But you do need to get some help from somebody who can actually help you. So on that note, if you do want some help and you want to speak to me about it, then please do just put a message below this video, or you can personal message me here on Facebook via Messenger, or of course you can get in touch with me via my website and just book in for a chat. And it literally is a chat. It's not a hard sell. I'm not going to convince you to work with me, but I will help you to perhaps make sense a little bit more of what is going on for you. So on that note, I'm going to wish you a woohoo Wednesday, whatever you get up to. It's that midweek feeling, isn't it, of yay. I really do like a Wednesday. Although my Wednesdays have changed massively from when I started being really excited about Wednesday. But you know what? I create my own excitement. I create my own joy by the things that I choose to do and by the decisions that I make. And you can do that too. You just might need a little bit of help to learn how. But it's not that difficult when you've got the tools. Have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.